What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the 1912 Exiles podcast. I'm delighted to say with me today is Taff from the Amber Army. We're going to be getting his thoughts on a number of topics, mostly around the season so far. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, mate.
So the first question is, we are third in the league, just behind Exeter on goal difference. You have to be happy with sort of how everything's gone so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's progress at the moment, isn't it? I mean, after 2 seasons to finish in 22nd, we just wanted to be at the other end of the table. You know, mid-table we'd have been happy with 11th. I think we're all delighted with last season. So to continue that progress and to find ourselves in third place at the moment is absolutely delightful. I mean, it's a place that we recognise because I'm not sure if you're aware, under Justin Edinburgh, we hit third place in 2 consecutive seasons at some point during the season. But unfortunately, towards the end of the season, we fell away twice. Nearly made the playoffs under Jimmy Dack after Edinburgh left. So to be sitting in third, considering we haven't got Les Scadding's money, we got Flynn, Lenny Lawrence, Wayne Hatswell and their recruitment, and the pennies that our trust ownership board can put together for him. I mean, it's absolutely great, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely agree. I think we've had some very shrewd signings. And obviously, we're well aware that we've got one of the smallest budgets in the league, but it seems that through his sort of man management, Mike Flynn is getting the most out of what he's got at the moment, which is really pleasing to see.
Yeah. I mean, it just goes to show how important an effective manager can have on a club. I mean, you look at Accrington, and their budget would have been possibly even smaller than ours last season, and they actually won the league quite convincingly. So it just goes to show that, you know, if you bring in the right kind of players with the right kind of mindset, with the right manager in charge, anything is possible in football. I mean, Leicester City's Premier League win is possibly the most shining example of that.
Yeah, definitely. And Leicester had sort of a very effective system as well. And I think sort of another praise of Mike Flynn is, even though we've had the small budget and a smaller playing squad, he's last 2 seasons especially, he's got some really talented players in on loan who've really been able to contribute.
Yeah, well, you'll find that the most successful teams in League Two who don't have money will be teams who utilise the loan market to the best of their capability. Fair play, for 2 seasons running now, Flynn has managed to do that. I mean, Ben White and Mikulski last season, and then, of course, Harris, Semenyo and Bakinson this season. I mean, he knows where to find the players, and fair play. You know, 2 seasons in a row, these loan players have done good for us.
Yeah, he's clearly got some good contacts, especially at Bristol by the seams of it, because we had McCluskey last season, like you said, and then got 3 on loan from him this year as well, which it's good to have that good relationship with a club that can provide players that can contribute.
Absolutely. I mean, we've had similar relationships like this in the past, obviously with Cardiff City, with Swansea City, and the thing is, they've not always been successful. But I don't think we've had a bad player from Bristol City yet. I mean, Pring's still to make more of an impact, but he's got to get more game time for that. But no, I think that's a really great link for us.
So this season, Flynn's been again getting quite rightly some praise for being less direct, playing some nice football. We've had a couple of really nice team goals. Do you think the change in style is something that's a change in Flynn's philosophy, or do you think that it's now that we've got the personnel to let us play the way that he wants to?
I definitely feel it's the latter. He would have had to carry some players over last season, and a few players have moved on. A few players have come in. I think he's got a more talented midfield now, which to be able to play that kind of football, the centre midfield needs to be able to produce that kind of football. Dolan looks thinner and sharper this season. I don't know whether last season was just a blip for him, struggled to find fitness or whatever. Might have been a yard or 2 behind. But this season, he looks at completely different players, like having a new signing. Sheehan has been a bit disappointing, unfortunately. But having someone like Bakinson come on loan, I mean, that's made a lot of difference. Fullbacks are getting more involved. Forbes is a very similar fullback, in my view, to Dan Butler. You know, gets forward, dribbles with the ball, links well with the midfield. And the strikers are also doing their bit as well, you know, dropping back, laying balls off. working well with the midfield. Everyone seems to know where we seem to know where we are. We always seem to play the ball to players knowing where they are and where they're going to be. So I think it just goes to show the kind of team spirit that we got as well, if they know each other that well.
Yeah, I think having settled by the looks of it on the three centre half strategy, because we sort of mixed a match between that and four at the back last season, but having the three centre halves in, it lets our sort of attacking minded fullbacks bomb on, and we've already seen Dan Butler has been phenomenal again this year, and it's good to see the system and having those players like you say, like Backinson's been a revelation coming in. It's good having that sort of consistency of the style, but also having the players now to enable our best creative players to play the way they want to play.
I mean, we've said our squad is small, but we've got injuries at the moment, but we're still fielding winning teams. It just goes to show our squad, even though it's small, it's being utilised well. We've got a lot of versatility in the squad, and no, it's great. And as you said, Dan Butler again, yeah, he's been awesome this season. The assists, the balls into the box, the way he links with people, and he's got 2 goals for a left back, 2 goals already. It's a really good return so far.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. And we've had goals from all over the pitch, which we didn't have so much last season. I know Mickey's got a couple of penalties. We've had 2 from Franks. All the strikers are on the board. We've had a couple of others from midfield. Backinson scored 1. So it's good that we're getting sort of everyone chipping in. It takes some of the pressure off not having that 20 goal a season striker, because that might not necessarily be something we can afford. Although that being said, I think Amund probably could be a 20 goal striker with the right service.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, a lot of people in League Two bang on about having that 20 goal a season striker, but we've got 4 strikers like what we've got at the moment to choose from, who could potentially get 10 to 15 each. You don't really need that 20 goal a season striker. You just need to be playing the right attackers in the right game.
Yeah, between our strikers, they've probably got about 15 goals. I think Matt's got 7, Amund's got 5, Semenyo's got 2, Harris has got 2, I think.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
not
you're not
far
far
off.
off there, yeah.
So it's good that they're all contributing, and I think hearing the way they speak, I think they're all pushing themselves, especially sort of the younger lads between Semenyo and Harris. They're pushing themselves to get each other better and to win that starting spot.
Yeah, of course, and competition for places keeps people on their toes, doesn't it? So it's always a good thing.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. So we have well documented off-field issues. So we're a quarter of the way through the season now. Do you think we're better or worse off than we were at the start of the season? And do you think there's anything we can improve sort of short term?
Off the field, I'd say I'd say we're better off than where we were at the beginning of the season, because we've secured a location for a shop. We've secured the Ivy Bush and now have the full license in there. So that's another avenue stream. Apparently the shop is in growth as well, which is great, because it hit really good growth last season. So at the beginning of the season, it was difficult to contemplate the fact that we're running off of an alleged 250k deficit every season. Now, it basically means we need a cup run every year to survive. So basically, we're finding ways to plug the gap. And if we're plugging the gap with having our own pub, finding growth in the shop, that's a good start. Off the field, a lot have been said about commercial. We haven't maximised commercial. I believe the young lady who was the commercial manager has now moved on.
Yeah.
And the COO guy is taking over that duty. From what I gather, he's going to be getting some support from the directors. Eventually, we may employ a commercial manager, but if we can recoup that commercial income and not have to pay a commercial manager to do it, that could be a stroke of genius from the board by putting it on a guy to do. But obviously, I'm not sure if you went to the last trust meeting, but the talks between the fans and the board about the future ownership of the club will be underway. The next meeting will be talking about converting to the hybrid ownership model. So for me, it shows that we're thinking well about the future. The only thing that concerns me off the field at the moment is the relationship with the Welsh Rugby Union. And for me, it's obviously a delicate relationship at the moment. I've been quite vocal recently in my displeasure at the relationship with the Welsh Rugby Union. Just as an example, the flags that the two young lads wave in the centre circle every home game were buried under a bunch of rugby equipment, a complete lack of courtesy and respect on their part for us. And that just, for me, speaks volumes in how we're perceived by the rugby element at Rodney Parade. But apparently we're talking and talks are going well. Guy is apparently building bridges again, which Alex Tunbridge had built. For some reason, as soon as Alex walked away, they fell and they collapsed. All the promises they made us, they didn't keep. So hopefully Guy can turn that back around, because ultimately everyone says we need to get somewhere else, but it's not as easy as just clicking your fingers and having a stadium just fall from the sky like a bloody computer game. It takes a lot of hard work and a lot of funding to actually get that. So for the foreseeable future, we need to maintain the relationship with the Welsh Rugby Union and play our games at Rodney Parade. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I agree completely that our future probably is at Rodney Parade. I'd certainly like to think so. I think it makes a big difference having sport in the city centre rather than over at Spitty like we had before. I think like having the Ivy Bush, that wouldn't have been possible if we were over at Spitty. So I know we had Bar Amber there, but it wasn't as big as the Ivy Bush is. And it being in the middle of town with the transport links that it has, I think it certainly probably is going to be more of a draw than the old Bar Amber was. And just getting to the games, and I think the atmosphere of having it in the centre of the city. Mike Flynn was talking on the D3 D4 podcast the other day that the day of the Great Escape, the city centre was just packed, and the atmosphere was buzzing all around the city. And it's great having that, and it sort of ingrains the club into the city more, rather than it being on the outskirts. And I know since we've moved to Rodney Parade, we've been more successful than when we were playing in sort of the Blue Square South and Premier, which also helps sort of build sort of the community feeling of the club. But I definitely think staying in the heart of the city is really in our interest.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for a club that struggles with attendances, I mean, we compete now. We're currently competing with attendances with the rest of League Two. Obviously, there's some like Lincoln who we're never going to be able to compete with at the moment. But it's a good point that you make about the Ivy Bush being in the city centre rather than where we had Bar Amber previously, and it was obviously outside of the city centre. Bar Amber was only really open for match days and was available to hire. The Ivy Bush can open any day it wants. And we're not just talking about county fans, we're talking about regular punters as well going in there for the pint.
Yeah.
So there's going to be an indirect income stream that way. Obviously, direct would be when the fans go in drinking. When a regular Joe goes in to have a drink who doesn't support the county, that's funds that
it's that
we would
additional income,
never
isn't
have
it?
had.
That if it's a Champions League day and they've got BT Sport showing the game, then you're going to draw in people who are just wanting to watch the game. But that money's then feeding back into the club, even though it's not a county fan necessarily, but it's still a resident of Newport feeding into the club. One thing I would like to see them do, even though the shop over Kingsway is making more money than the old club shop, I think a pop-up shop on match day would be really effective, just with a small stock of sort of shirts, hats, scarves, because I don't know the ins and outs of licensing of trading on the Rodney Parade ground, but a pop-up shop is literally just an awning and a table really and a lockbox, and being able to just get a little bit of that income, especially when we're playing well or we get a bigger crowd like we did against Yeovil. If we'd had a pop-up shop and a few people had bought their kids scarves and things like that, that's just a little bit extra money that we might not get from the everyday sales in Kingsway. And there's people
Absolutely.
like I don't live in Newport anymore, and I travel back for the games when I can, but I don't have time to go over to Kingsway in a week. But if I'm there at the stadium and I want to buy something, then if there's a pop-up shop, then I can. Otherwise, the club is either having to rely on online or capturing the moment of a fan who's just seen a great win, obviously not in the Yeovil case, wanting to buy a scarf and come back.
Yeah, I mean, I think you make a really good point there, and it's a discussion I've had with other people a fair few times because, as you know, I sell half-time draw tickets on the main gate, and I do get asked, "Oh, what happened to the club shop? Where can I buy merchandise?" And I say it's in the city centre, and I'll tell them straight. The rugby screwed us over, and we were meant to be sharing their shop with them, and they just wouldn't let us in. So we were pretty much stuck. So the only place we could get was the Kingsway. So unfortunately, we can't sell it on match days here. But as you say, if we had a pop-up shop that, just a bit of stock, a few sizes of each home and away shirt, a couple of t-shirts if we got them in stock in the shop, we'd bring a few of them over. As you say, smaller items like hats and scarves, badges. As long as we got a few bits there's something to satisfy people's needs. I mean, going into the club shop and buying something is part of people's match day experience, and if you're taking that part of the match day experience away, then say it could be to a detriment because match day experience is one of the biggest factors I feel of bringing people back to come and watch us more.
Yeah,
So if they
definitely.
don't get to buy this, if they don't get to buy this scarf, then they go away with something. Even if the football was good, they'll walk away with something of a disappointment. And you want fans, even if we lose, to walk away thinking they've had a good day. I definitely think you're right. A pop-up shop would be ideal because I'm pretty certain someone told me that the biggest spike in sales are match days. So if the club shop is doing as well as it is by being in the city centre, plus having that pop-up shop,
Yeah.
then we're talking about growth. We're talking about plugging that gap even further that we talked about at the beginning.
Yeah, definitely. It's good that we're rebuilding those bridges with the rugby union as well. I I understand the frustrations of the fans wanting to know more about what's going on, but I also think that the club sort of has to be quite responsible in that they can't really discuss the ins and outs of it because it probably wouldn't be very professional. And it's probably going to damage the relationship more. It's good that they waited
Mm-hmm.
until the supporters trust meeting and sort of said, well, there is a dialogue and things are improving, because it kind of dampens those speculation and rumours because everyone just assumes the worst case when they don't know anything.
Yeah,
And
of course.
it's just speculation then. So it's good that the club is trying to control it, but I understand why they're not sort of publishing full details on everything that's going on.
I mean, this club has got one of the worst rumor mills going, and you do get a lot of rubbish being passed around people. People who believe certain things are going on within the club, but they're not really. Um, when we're talking, reputable people, people who've been involved in the club in the past, have been part of these, this rumor spreading, and it's a bit of a shame because it's damaging. And with the Welsh Rugby Union situation, there's a lot of different rumours flying around. I believe the board were unable to talk about it due to potential legal implications. I believe there was some kind of legal dispute going on um, with the Welsh Rugby Union, so that's why they've not been able to talk. But obviously, you get the so-called transparency people shouting, "Oh, where's the information? Where's the communication?" But the thing is, we're not a non-league club anymore. We're not in the days where everybody used to know everything that was going on in the club. We're a football league club, and there's certain things that we can't let our rivals know about the club. So if you share
Yeah,
it with the fans, that means we've got to make it public. That means our rivals are going to know.
yeah, that's
So the
why
less they know,
we didn't publish how much money we sort of recouped from the FA Cup run last year until we announced our finances,
mm-hmm,
which was after the transfer window closed, I believe. Um, because if they thought, oh well, this club's got some cash in their back pocket, they're going to agents who we're negotiating with, they're going to try and drive up the price of the players we wanted to bring in. So obviously, some of the information
exactly.
is commercially sensitive, and that's why it's just a business, and it's how
Mm-hmm.
business is done. So
Yeah,
moving
I
on
mean, yep.
slightly, what do you think our priorities should be? So we're nearly at January, the halfway point of the season. What do you think our priorities should be? Personally, I think keeping Backinson and Harris, if we can, until the end of the season, should be a priority. Do you think there's anyone else
Mm-hmm.
we should keep, or maybe extend their contracts? Any positions we should be looking to strengthen?
Um, I don't know about strengthen. I think we're pretty sound everywhere. I mean, it's keeping the squad fit should be a priority. But then you never know when injuries are going to happen. Like what happened to Robbie Wilmot, that was just off the back of a bad challenge, and these things just happen in football. There are some key players whose contracts run out at the end of the season, the likes of Mickey Demetriou, Mark O'Brien, Joe Day, Dan Butler, Matt Dolan. As I said, key players, and I think Ammons is up at the end of the season as well. So what we need to be doing, unfortunately, because we're in the English league, the Scottish league are able to poach our players. Now, it doesn't happen that often, but a couple of years ago it happened to Accrington, and they lost Josh Windass, and I can't remember the other player. There was another player they lost as well, and they were two of their best players, and they lost them for nothing because they were poached by Rangers. So
Was it Adam
for
Matthews as
me,
well? It happened. Adam Matthews from Cardiff. They poached him and didn't have to pay any compensation.
yeah, that'd have been Celtic, wouldn't
Oh
it?
yeah, Celtic.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. So it happens. Obviously, it can happen the other way around, but you don't tend to find that it does unless you've got like a Derek Adams, and I think he got what was the name of the striker for Plymouth, who was really good for them. Was it? Oh, can you think of his name? The striker who used to play in Scotland for Ross County. Derek
Um,
Adams had him.
no, I can't think.
He scored a bunch of goals for them. He scored against us in the 7-1 win against us. The season they went up. I can't think of his name. I don't know why I can't think of his name today. Proper blank moment.
I'll have a look. I'll look it up.
Look it up, yeah. But then I'm just using him as an example. I think that's how Plymouth got him from Ross County. Or I don't
Yeah,
know if
so
he was playing
sometimes it
for
does
Ross
happen
County
the
at
other
the time.
way.
Yeah, but because we're doing so well, obviously people are going to be looking at our players. I mean, obviously Falkirk signed Tomo and Evans from us. So
Yeah,
that means that the Scottish teams do look at League Two. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
definitely.
So I'd like to think that we're going to be protecting our interests with those players by signing them up before January hits. But then at the same time, even if it's before the end of the season, and as long as we can get them signed up, and those are the kind of players we need to keep. We can't go back to the days of overhauling our squad in the summer,
Yeah,
because as things worked out under Terry Butcher and under Warren Feeney, overhauling the squad just don't work.
I think we've
Keeping a bit of
benefited this season
normality.
from the consistency, having a large proportion of the squad carry over from one year to the next, and I think that's definitely been of benefit compared to, like you say, the last couple of years where we've had a huge turnover of players. But it
Mm-hmm.
comes with a consistency of manager as well that we haven't had since Edinburgh left.
Yeah, that's it. Jake Jervis, I was the striker for Plymouth, by the way.
Ah, right,
Just
okay.
come back to me now. So Jake Jervis, yeah, he was playing in Scotland, and Plymouth managed to poach him. But yeah, I mean, we've got Flynn, we got some, as you say, managerial consistency, we got some squad consistency, and now we're adding and progressing at the moment. And what we don't want is this apple cart to be tipped. So what we need to do is get those players signed up as soon as we can. And if it costs a little bit more money to keep them, then so be it. I think they're worth it.
Yeah, I think part of the problem will be, especially if we're in a similar position in January as we are now, um, the the club and probably some of the players will want to see where we finish before committing. I was a bit
Yeah.
surprised that we didn't try and tie Dan Butler down to a 2-year deal in the summer last year, to be honest. But
Yeah,
if
that
any,
was a strange one for me. Yeah.
unless the player didn't want it, that's the only reason I can think of, because the club would want it. So unless he thought, well, if I have another good year in League Two, I can go beyond, and he probably can. Let's be honest, the way he's been playing, he could easily be playing in
Of
League One.
course.
Um,
I mean, you just got to look at Andrew Hughes. Andrew Hughes is playing in the Championship for Preston at the moment, and by all accounts, is doing well. For me, Dan Butler is a much better left back than Andrew Hughes. Andrew Hughes is a good centre back for us, I felt, but
yeah,
he played left back for Peterborough, and I believe he's playing left back for Preston. And for me, Dan Butler is a better left back.
yeah, definitely. He's probably the best left back I've seen at the club in certainly in my time in watching it. But I think if anyone comes in with a bid for any money, we're probably going to accept it. That's kind of the reality that we're in.
Hmm.
We can, especially those players who are coming out of contract. Flinney said before that Joe Day could play at a higher level. I think Dan Butler will have his eye on playing at a higher level. And those players are out of contract. If we sort of approach them with a new deal and they turn it down, then it's in our interest to accept the cash now
Yeah.
and get something for them
Hmm.
rather than just lose them for nothing in the summer anyway. Obviously, it would be a big loss, and we wouldn't want them. We wouldn't want to lose them, but it's the reality that again, financial situation we're in is we're going to be a selling club. We can't afford to not be.
I mean, if we're going to face reality, I mean, we're one of the smaller clubs in League Two with one of the smaller budgets. Our key objective every season should be to remain in League Two. So if we're currently sitting in third place and we get offers for some of our key players, that's going to help tide the club over for a few years. Then we got no other option. We got to accept those offers and allow those players to move on. I mean, we can replace them potentially, probably not as adequately, but it'll be money in the bank. And at the end of the day, if we're sitting in the top three, losing those players may cause us to fall out and finish in the playoffs, or even fall outside of the playoffs. But for us, our key objective in the harsh reality of it is to just stay in League Two. So any situation where we finish, top half or above the relegation, or not even been parred in the relegation shape in the first place, has got to be a successful season for us.
Yeah, and also if you sort of look at Exeter, the the I don't think we'll make quite the money that they have selling their youngsters who have come through. I think they made 5 million in the last 3 years. There's no way we're going to make that kind of money. But if the money we make from player sales is going back into the club, then we can just keep putting those foundational blocks in, and slowly over the years we can stop being, well, we want to avoid relegation, we want to get mid-table, and then hopefully playoffs, and we can just try and keep growing the fan base as well on the back of that. Um,
Yeah,
and
I mean,
that's kind of the way you have to approach it, step by step. Because
mhm.
if we overreach, then that's when we're going to find ourselves in trouble. Um, and I think if we can just keep putting those small blocks in place time after time, maybe using the money to get our own training ground, slowly building that sort of basis of what all the bigger clubs than us have already, then that gives us an opportunity in the future. It might not be as exciting short term, selling some of your better players, but in the long term, it sort of makes us more sustainable.
Absolutely. And I think when we got some money to invest into the club, maybe if we get that money in, it means that we can invest in bringing in a commercial manager, as I mentioned before, someone that's actually going to pay their own wages and make even more money for the club on top of that. A more, what's the word I'm looking for? Um, I hate this when words can't come to my head. Well, so someone who's going to be a commercial manager that will outperform their predecessors, basically.
Yeah,
I mean, if you pay the extra money for someone with that bit more experience and that few extra contacts, then maybe it'll pay dividends in the long run.
yeah,
So, I
definitely.
say you need to have some money in the bank to invest it in something that's going to work for you. And ultimately, what we need to be doing is increasing the fan base. So, if we got money to invest in a marketing strategy to market the club across Newport and the outer regions, um, if we got money when we become a hybrid club, and if the council are involved, and they then become the social glue between us and the Welsh Rugby Union to work together. If we got a bit of money to invest into Rodney Parade, if it becomes a better stadium to look at, because to be honest with you, when you walk into Rodney Parade, you don't get that walking into a football stadium feeling that you get when you walk into a nicer ground.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? If you walk into a nice ground, you walk through the tunnel, and then the stadium unfolds as you walk through, and the pitch is out there. You get that breathtaking feeling. You
yeah.
don't get that with Rodney Parade.
No,
If we had a bit of money to invest,
it's a bit like
if
hodgepodge, isn't it? That they're just stands of
yeah,
different sizes, just kind of cobbled together. I think you kind of get it if you're in the Bisley. If you're in there, you sort of walk through all the nice bit underneath. There's all the food outlets, and then you go up into the stand, which is kind of like most stadiums are. But
Mm.
that's the only place in Rodney Parade that's like that. If you're in either end behind the goals, then it is literally just a stack of concrete, isn't it? Really, that you stood on.
Yeah.
And then the other side, that it's not quite as modern as you'll find in most football league stadiums now.
I mean, some people call it old school, and people like old school grounds, which is great. But it's things like, the North Terrace could use a roof. I mean, instead of spending money on a stupid castle and a dragon down by the changing rooms, maybe put it towards putting a roof on the North Terrace.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, definitely agree with that.
Mm.
Let's have a look. So you wanted to talk about some of the criticism that Tyler Forbes has come in for. So for those who don't know, do you want to kind of explain a bit sort of what you've
hmm
read and what you've heard about his performances and what people's sort of concerns of him are?
Yeah, well, so sort of general discussions that I've had, people are talking about Tyler Forbes. Oh, he can't defend, he can't defend. The Stevenage game, why did he let that cross in? Which is fair enough. For those on Facebook who are part of the county chat, he's talked about quite regular. He's got his critics. I believe so. So some of it is acceptable, I suppose. But then some of it is a bit harsh. Um, I remember 2 years ago, Dan Butler getting the exact same criticism, and then all of a sudden Wayne Hatswell comes to the football club, who's played left-sided centre back and left back in his past, and all of a sudden Dan Butler is transformed as a defending left back, but also retained his traits going forward, and for me has improved on them. Forbes is a very similar player in my eyes to what Dan Butler was 2 years ago. Bit shaky in his defending, but gets forward, can dribble with the ball, can get a good ball into the box, links well with the midfielders. So for me, he is our Dan Butler on the right, but has got some catching up to do. Obviously, work on his defending. So I think people who are criticising him now need to ask themselves, did I say the same thing about Dan Butler 2 years ago? You could guarantee that majority of them did, and are not saying the same things now. So the way I see it, yeah, he's made a few defensive errors, but we're sitting third in the table at the moment, and he's played the majority of the games. So I think that speaks volumes.
Yeah, I think, like you say, other players have come in for that criticism before, and over time they've proved proved their value, like Dan Butler. Scott Bennett used to come in for a lot of criticism when he first came back, and I think he's been brilliant this year. I think Forbes is in a fortunate position that he's got people like Hatswell, he's got David Pipe. He's still only 22, and he hasn't really played that much football.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think he's going to develop. I think if we gave him a year or two's development, I definitely think, like you say, he could be a similar story to Dan Butler if he applies himself. He's going to make mistakes when he's young. He only played 10 games for Accrington last season, and then he played a handful in the Premier League reserves. So when you're a young player, you need game time to develop, and I think he's going to get that in the club this season, especially with. I think we'll see a transition from Pike being first choice to Forbes being first choice this season, just because of Pipey's age. Like Flinney said last season, he didn't expect Pipe to be playing as much as he did. And then we've always got Pipe to fall back on if Forbes is out of form or he's injured or he just needs a rest. We've got Pipe there, and he's got all that experience
Mm-hmm.
to draw on. And I think he's got Franks on that side of defence as well, who is a very vocal defender. So if he's playing as the right of the three centre backs, he's going to push and pull Forbes wherever he needs him, which is sort of part of being an experienced player, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I think they make a great point in having Pipe as something of a mentor to him, potentially. Wayne Hatswell as a coach, and then, as you say, Franks, who's a very experienced League Two defender, a very what's the word I'm looking for? I'm trying to think of the same word again, and I can't think of it. But he's a reliable League Two defender, knows his stuff, And yeah, having him in your ear is definitely going to make you better in the long run. So I think there's better to come from Forbes. I think you make the same transition as what Butler made over the last 2 seasons, and no, we'll see two very effective fullbacks. And if we're playing a back three, and they get the option to roam forward, we're going to get a lot of success on the back of it.
Yeah, especially with some effective strikers sort of in the air. I think Jamil Matt has proven me wrong, as I said on the last episode, because he doesn't have a great goal scoring record through his career, but he's obviously benefited from having the service that he gets from Butler and on the other side from Forbes. And he's also shown a poacher's instinct in places in just getting the tap-ins. And Hammond is good in the air, and Semenyo isn't great in the air yet, but he's got all the potential to be brilliant in the air. He's strong as an ox. He can jump. He just needs to work on that timing and positioning, get his head on these crosses. But again, is he only 19, Semenyo? So he's got
He is only 19, yeah.
plenty of room to develop as a player as well. So I think there's a lot of positives
As
to
you
this
say,
squad.
as you say with Semenyo, his timing, his positioning, those are things that come with experience. And he said he's got bags of time to work on that. And I think game time with us is doing him the world of good at the moment.
I think
So certainly the goal on the weekend will give him a lot of confidence.
Yeah, he's physically everything you'd want. He's everything you wouldn't want to play against as a defender, that's for sure. He's so strong. He can shoot with both feet. He could absolutely terrorise defences. He's just maybe lacks a little bit of composure at times, and maybe his decision making isn't great. But like we've said, that's just something that comes with experience of playing more and more games and playing at a higher standard probably than he has been playing youth football. So I'm pretty positive that he's going to turn out to be a real player, if not at this level, maybe sort of at a level above.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Mikulski on the back of being on loan to us is on loan at Southend in League One. Funny enough, the team that he scored 2 goals against are not going out of the League Cup the season before. But you're dead right about Semenyo. I think some game time with us will do him a lot of good, and I think he's well worth the level above. I mean, Man United are looking at him, so he's got to be worth something if he's drawing that kind of attention.
Yeah, definitely. And it was good to see Mo Toure as well, being called up to the under-21s. Talking of strikers with room to develop, I've noticed. I've seen some of the photos from Barry Town. He looks physically like he's developed quite a lot already. He's looking a lot stronger already than he was sort of last season. So I think he might be able to, with a bit more experience, and certainly playing in the under-21s will help.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully he'll be physically ready, which I think was probably his criticism, that he wasn't quite physically ready for League Two. So hopefully he'll come back into the squad in next season, because he's at Barry for the whole of this year.
Let's hope he continues to score goals, and as I say, will we see a better player come to us next summer?
Yeah, for sure. So the final point that I want to talk about is, I know you're close to quite a big milestone on the Amber Army YouTube channel at the moment. So what have you got going on to sort of celebrate if you reach your 2,000 subscribers?
Right. Yeah, so basically we got 2 major administrators on the Amber Army YouTube channel, as myself and Chris Ball, who's responsible for the Rodney Parade Experience videos and the Amber Army Away Days videos. Well, it'd be him and his girlfriend Jennifer who make them videos together. Quite a nice, cute thing, that, actually, isn't it? But at around about the 1,700 subscriber mark, we were thinking, we're getting close to 2,000 subscribers. What can we do to push us over the line? We just thought a series of campaigns, raise a little bit of awareness to fans of the club who may not realise that we got the kind of content that we got on there. Also, fans who might not realise that we actually make money through advertising on the back of people watching the videos. So also tying in with the live streams I do every Sunday at 8 o'clock. Basically, every time we hit a 100 subscriber milestone, we're doing a giveaway live on the stream. And basically, I judge who asks the best question of the night, and then they ultimately win. So far, we've had 2 winners because we've hit the 1,800 mark and the 1,900 mark. And yeah, the final leg, is, we can see light at the end of the tunnel on that one at the moment. 2000, not that far away. We've actually got a signed shirt from last season, and that is going to whoever wins on the next giveaway, which will be as soon as we hit the 2000 mark, the next Taff's Word Live, we'll have that giveaway.
That's brilliant. One of the great things that I've seen, one of my favourite things recently, is that you managed to get a chat with Matt Dolan and Fraser Franks after the game last week, and that's really good. Being able to get that fan interaction with the players, which we, as a small club, we don't always get. So it's nice to be able to have those sort of ad hoc fans meeting players and asking them the questions that fans want to know, rather than it being a press release in the Argus or from the club. I know iFollow does it a little bit, but it's still a little bit journalistic, so it's nice having it from the fans' point of view as well. So that's one of my favourite videos
Absolutely.
on there recently.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, because it gives me an opportunity to praise the lads who are behind that. You got a team of 3 lads. You got Michael Green, who's the face of the new series Amber Talk, and then you've got his friends Ryan and Ruben, who accompany him. They've appeared on the Amber Talk a few times between them, and it's just through their own sort of initiative that they decided to run down and hope they could grab 2 of the players. And thankfully, they got 2 really great interviews with 2 of our better performing players for this season. So I was really delighted when they managed to do that. So hopefully there's big things to come from that trio and Amber Talk. And anyone who wants to get involved with them, hopefully now they know what they look like, they can approach them and appear on them themselves.
Yeah, definitely. That would be really good to get that get fans' voices heard a bit more as well, which is really good. And we're going to try and get a few more people on here, I think, on the podcast. People who I'd really like to get, who I haven't actually spoke to yet, I'd like to get the 2 lads, or 3 lads, sorry, from the USA branch of the Newport County Supporters Association.
Right, yeah.
I think their story would be really interesting to hear, sort of how they got into supporting the county. So I'm trying to get in touch with them, but I haven't heard back from them yet.
Well, that's something I think I can help you out with. We do talk to them quite often through the Amber Army on Twitter. I could certainly drop a line for you.
That's brilliant. So I think that's it for today. So thank you very much for coming on. It's been a really interesting interview, and we'll hopefully have you on again soon.
No, it's been great. Thanks, it's been a pleasure.
All right, this has been the 1912 Exiles podcast. Please like and subscribe to my SoundCloud and also to the Amber Army YouTube channel. Catch you next time. Thanks very much. Yeah, if I just stop the recording.